Hello my friends, how are you today? This is going to be part 2 of the 3D printing video that I started last week and ran out of time to be able to finish it. So what we've got today is I found a ship that comes from the genre of Battlestar Galactica on Thingiverse, and I will put the link in the description below. But this is going to be just I chose this ship because of the fact that I wanted something that would require supports so that I could at least have that enabled in this particular video. As a result, we'll be able to see how the supports build up in the process of shooting the time-lapse photography, and then afterwards I will try to capture video of us just taking this thing off the plate and the finalized work. So this is the model that we're going to print, and I chose this model because it does have a few needs for supports, and in general a lot of people will tell you some basic settings that help make the printer better. In this case, this guy didn't put very much, so we're going to guess with most of the rest of the stuff. But we will do supports and we will print it vertically, even though laying it flat could also be a way of printing it. I have loaded the model right here, and I'm going to set this so that we're just gonna make it a little bit smaller, and we're gonna reset all of these changes. So going through here, I'm gonna double check my layer height is what I want it. These are the thicknesses. I'm gonna leave them alone for this round. The infill density, because this is a toy, I'm gonna fill it to 100%. And if you notice, that also changes like top layers and stuff, because now you're 100% layers. I mean, it's infinite. Then the printing temperature, I'm okay with this. I'm going to try changing the build plate temperature to 45. And I did not want that to auto change because we want this to be a different temperature. I'm going to have them different just to see if it changes, because I've had a little bit of bulging, or I don't know what it's called, initial layer bulge that happens as a result of potentially my build plate being just too hot. I want retraction. I want to enable retraction at layer change, because in order to do the time-lapse photography for this, I need to have it retract at layer change, because if I don't, it does cause stringing as it goes over to take the picture and come back. Moving on down, we are going to leave these at their basic settings, and we want generate support. So I want the support to be normal and everywhere, and the overhang angle, which is the angle at which it chooses to start supporting, is going to be different for every printer, because there are printers that don't do very well even at a 59 degree, and you might have to set it down to a lower percentage. My printer does pretty well in the 60 range, and so 59 is perfect for this particular print. With build adhesion type, this might be a risky print to do as a skirt, so I'm going to choose to do a brim just so that I can get a little bit more build adhesion, because I'm not taking up very much of my build plate. One cool thing is when you set up Creality, the build plate will be a 1-to-1 representation of your build plate, because you'll put in the dimensions if it doesn't have your printer in there already, and Cura does have the CR10, so I'm okay with that. Conical support won't help us much because the supports are not very big, but I like this one. I'm actually going to change my profiles to include conical support for the future. Conical support makes support areas smaller at the bottom than at the overhang. In other words, it looks kind of like a funnel, and it starts a little bit smaller at the bottom and spreads out to match the overhang when it needs to do that. This reduces the overall material that you're going to use, and the beauty is that it also reduces a little bit of the time that it takes to print these, so I see it as a win-win. It also does one really cool thing, that it pulls the supports away from your part so that you're not having to potentially work with interfering parts as much, which could be a good thing. We'll see how it works. On this part, it is very small. I don't expect us to have a problem. If we look under here, we're going to see the areas which it does want to support, and so anywhere it's red, except for like these 2 points of the engines, are going to, because they are the only points that are contacting the ground, everything that's red is going to be supported. And while we can see some of the supports right here, that might cause problems, and I'm going to try an experiment where I'm going to tell it, instead of everywhere, I'm going to say everything that can see the build plate. So that means anything I can see right now is going to have a support. I think this will work a little bit better, but it will prevent supports from being built into this window and into this window area, and it could cause problems. We'll see how it does. I will show you guys the print as it prints. So that's all for this section. I'm going to save this. Once everything's set up, when you click on slice, it will automatically select your medium for sending your information to the printer. I use a micro SD card, and it seems to work very well for me, and it automatically selects that. If I select this, you won't see my micro SD card in here. The micro SD card would be this drive J right now, and it automatically has that selected. If I select I, you'll see drive J shows up because that was what was selectable. So when I click save, it will save that to that drive, and I know that I can take that drive over to the printer and I won't be searching for it around my computer. If you don't have it in, if you don't have your drive in your computer or plugged into your computer in a way, it will find a place on your computer to save it. I think it saves in documents, but it should tell you where it's going to save, like save to file. It'll save it somewhere on the computer. Okay, so now that we have this saved, and we've saved it to the removable drive, I am going to eject it, and we will pull that out. And my machine uses a micro SD, and we'll come over here. And this is my printer. And over here, let's see. I make sure to insert the SD card properly, because in the case of my printer, you can accidentally put your micro SD into just the empty box. It would help if I took out the other SD card. That certainly improves the odds. Okay, then I turn this on. Now, I don't want to print this in yellow, so I need to change out the filament, which I can do really well, so sort of quickly. What I need to do is I need to go into prepare, and I need to preheat the PLA. That will turn on this cooling fan, and it will start heating up the nozzle. This will allow me to pull the filament out and allow me to change out the filament. So I will get that heated up. So now the hot end has gotten hot enough that I can be able to pull the PLA out. I found that if I apply pressure and I put a little bit of pressure into the hot end and then pull it back out, I tend to get a cleaner removal, and you can see the removal is a lot cleaner, and that's because I tried to push it through the hot end out here and extrude it a little bit, and then I pulled it back and it kind of ripped it off. And you don't want to let your PLA cross or get underneath itself kind of tying knots, because that will mess up future prints. So I very carefully make sure that through this pathway I roll my PLA back, and then I hold on to the end until I can place the PLA through one of these spots. Now, just as a courtesy to myself, I make sure I cut off the end, because I can't put that back through the printer, and I cut off the end and I throw the other end away. So here's my new PLA, and we're gonna print this spaceship out of blue, and I just put this on here. and then thread it into this area. Keeping pressure on this makes it so that it won't force the motor to move. So I keep pressure on that and I thread it all the way through. And then after a few seconds that will have heated up, I can start my print. Go pick up the Battlestar Galactica Viper, and that will start the print. I keep my PLA in these Tupperware boxes. I found them to be just the right size for my PLA, and with the dry packs in there, it helps keep things a little bit drier, even though I know that they don't dry things. Alright, so I've got everything set up, ready for the print. And what we're going to do is, as this thing hits its temperature, it'll zero itself to the X, Y, and Z plane. And when it does that, it will then start the brim that we talked about earlier. So, because of the fact that we have a little bit of stuff hanging off there, I am going to make sure that that stuff does not make it onto the print bed. So I've got my handy little tweezers. And I just move this aside so that it doesn't get all gummed up and gum up my hot end. Pull that out. And you can see the print start to print. Now during this period, I gently feel where I can to make sure that I'm getting good build adhesion. Okay? So it looks like maybe in the back I might be having troubles. Actually, it looks like it's good. It's being good. So now you can see that it's changing color into the blue, because as the yellow gets purged out of the hot end, it's going to change to the blue. And that's why I didn't try to purge it before, because my guess is that by the time we get to the point where we're actually printing, it will be solid blue and we won't have a problem. Most of the time this is true, especially if you have a bigger perimeter that you're going to do. It seems to work out okay. So we will let the printer do its job, and here we go. Gah, facepalm. Leave it to me to place the camera in the wrong spot. Let's try again. What? A dead battery? And I ran out of blue? Okay, well, here we go again. This is what we printed with blue, and unfortunately the battery on the DSLR that was taking the time-lapse photography died. And so it died at about this far up on the model, and I was forced to make another print, and I have run out of blue. And this shows an interesting phenomenon where the difference in PLA actually resulted in a different type of print altogether. Like these little dendrites that show up here, these are a cause of the fact that the two materials, although printed on the same settings, react differently. So the oozing effect coming out of the nozzle extended before it could get back after taking each picture, and it resulted in these dendrites getting built. So you can see some of the little bits and pieces that kind of got attached. So you can see right here we've got, oh dear, right here we've got some buildup that needs to come off, and also we've got to get this off, and it should just kind of peel off. There we go. Now it looks like I'm going to probably need to get a tool scribe or something like that for the end. Oh, the tail did not pick up as well. I'm going to need to get a tool scribe for inside the engines. But mostly I would say that the blue printed really well, except for that just tiny little bit right there. Let's see how the black printed. The black looks like it picked up the tail pretty well. I'm going to have to pull off all these dendrites. I might have to get a clipper for them. But no, it looks like they're coming off pretty well. Let's see if we can just... Looks like the black printed a little bit better overall than the blue. Wow, look at that model. It came out pretty well. So I'm gonna have to clean up the engines a little bit, but I would say that model is a complete success. That's pretty awesome. So look at that. I like how shiny it is when you do 3D prints and stuff. The light that gets captured by the layers is wonderful. So there we go. My sincere hope to you is that if you've been on the fence about trying 3D printing, or that you've bought a 3D printer and you're too scared to print, that this opens up the door for maybe cracking through and figuring out your own printer settings and how your printer is going to react when you start printing. It's not a terrible thing. Luckily, the PLA is not a terribly expensive material. I've had some experiments that totally failed in my past. I tried to go over to PETG, which is a much hotter material to print with, and it didn't work out very well. Let's just say that. It's damaged my current build plate pretty well, and I'm going to have to get it replaced pretty soon. Come here. Come here. Oh, never mind. My daughter almost came into the video. She didn't want to. Anyway, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and have a wonderful weekend. Okay. So, this model is